Welcome. I want to offer you a formation on the spirituality of L'Arche. The formation I offer today is one perspective, one view, and there are many ways of looking at the spirituality of L'Arche. Over the years, a number of documents have been created. I want to recommend them to you. Jean Vanier wrote a book called The Heart of L'Arche. This depicts his look at the spirituality of L'Arche many years ago. In 2011, a document called A Learning Guide for the Spirituality of L'Arche was created. It's 41 pages long, was created by a Spirituality Commission for L'Arche USA. In 2017, after doing a survey of the communities, the Spirituality Commission for L'Arche USA created a document that's simply called the White Paper, which is a much more up-to-date look at some of the spiritual questions, tensions, and practices of L'Arche USA communities. Finally, from that came a document called Guide to Practices that Provide Meaning. This document offers you some very practical applications of the spirituality of L'Arche around things such as birthdays, anniversaries, foot washings, retreats, celebrations, even death and dying. So all of those documents are relevant to the spirituality of L'Arche, and I really want to invite you to look at them as time goes on. Today, I offer you this one perspective, and all L'Arche spirituality really begins, the spirituality of mutual relationships. The secret of L'Arche is relationships. Jean Vanier wrote that, but anyone who has ever lived in L'Arche would say, yeah, of course, that's the secret of L'Arche, mutual relationships. And that's our spiritual journey right there. The spirituality of L'Arche implies being present to people with disabilities in a contemplative way, in an intentional way, in a prayerful way, in a kind of a quiet way, and in a joyful way, living simply with them, not doing anything great, finding the presence of God in the dailiness of love. The spirituality of L'Arche is always about little things, and it's always about dailiness, in the little things of work, in the chores that we do together, in the meal preparation, in the cleanup, in the daily life that's got to be shared. It's about life sharing and about dailiness. And it's like Mary and Joseph of Nazareth. That was one of the original images of L'Arche and of L'Arche spirituality, that we were creating a home like Mary and Joseph did. So living with people with disabilities or people with differences can transform our lives. We can learn to live from the heart. That's the movement, from the head to the heart. By sharing life in L'Arche, we're invited to learn about the relationships of love and communion. And when we do that, we discover our own barriers, our own vulnerabilities. In fact, we're invited, if you will, to live a school of love. During the mission and identity process that took 3 years, 3 words emerged: relationship, transformation, and sign. Concerning relationships, Jesus teaches that whatever you do for the least, you do for me. All 3 words are about relationship, huh? We live relationships with our people, and we live relationships with each other. And from those relationships, we are challenged and called, and we are changed, and we grow, and we're transformed. And when that happens, people notice. We become a sign of forgiveness, a sign of reconciliation, a sign of hope to each other and to the world. So not only are honest, sincere, engaged, committed relationships at the heart of our journey together, but they are what Jesus meant when he said the reign of God is at hand. The reign of God is at hand when we live honest, sincere, engaged, committed relationships. The reign of God is at hand when we live love. And love is a verb, love is an action, love is a practice, and it's the practice of honest, mutual relationship. The will, the hope, the wish of God is that we love one another. It's really that simple. Love one another as I have loved you, Jesus said. So mutual relationships include solidarity. So there's the larger picture, the solidarity with other communities, the solidarity with the churches in our neighborhoods, the solidarity with the International Federation of L'Arche. And mutual relationships are about walking with each other and walking with our core people. And they're about accompaniment, and they're about life sharing, right? And they're all led by the core people. One of the great discoveries of L'Arche is that we learn from and grow from our relationship with the core people. We come to serve we end up being served. We have a God who hungers for communion. So eating at the table together is a symbol of our hunger for communion, and it's a symbol of the great banquet. It's a sign of mutuality. When I first started in this field over 40 years ago, my first experience was at a meal at a home where the staff made the meal and went into the office to sit. They did not see themselves as equals. They didn't see themselves as buddies. They didn't see themselves as partners. They weren't trying to build community. They weren't trying to life share. They were trying to feed people. In L'Arche, we don't just feed people, we share life. We eat at the same table. We say, we are in communion together. We are in community together. We want to grow in mutual relationships. Eating at the table together is a sign of mutuality. As the prayer of St. Francis says, it's in giving that we receive. This is the great gift of mutuality. We come thinking we're going to give, and then we discover we are the ones receiving. It happens over and over again. And mutuality leads to unity. We are united by shared goals, by a shared vision, by a spirit of welcome and sharing and simplicity. We are united by sharing our sacred stories with each other. We love more and we judge less when we know each other's stories. So we're called to unity by mutuality. We'll come to the spirituality of unity in the next section. The spirituality of unity. I pray that they might be one in us. This is the great prayer of Jesus. It's the great hunger of Jesus. It's the last prayer of Jesus. I pray that they might be one in us. That's our goal, to become like-minded, not in the sense of everybody thinks the same or does the same, but in the sense that we have a great sense of tolerance, a great sense of acceptance, a great sense of listening to each other, so that we might become more and more one in this united mission, in this united sense of community life. And the communities recognize that they have an ecumenical vocation and a mission to work for unity. It's important to note that spirituality is innate. It's in all of us. The question really is, what is central to you? Or how do I feel connected? Where do I feel a sense of belonging? What is sacred to me? And so we need to talk, and we need to understand each other, and we need to speak from a place of love so that we can help each other create meaning and create understanding. And that's really what spirituality is about. And then from this point of the individual community, the individual spirituality, comes the communal spirituality, where a person has a sense of their own meaning, their own sacredness, their own what's important to them, and then they can recognize how to work on a mission for unity with others. The Ark, L'Arche, is a symbol of unity in the midst of diversity. You know, the word L'Arche is a French word that means the ark. So the original vision of L'Arche was that of Noah's Ark. The Ark is a symbol of community, and it's a symbol of shelter and refuge and welcome. As you know, you could not be more diverse than the Ark, two of everything that existed on the earth, and you couldn't be more united than to be united on a ship full of difference, but also fighting in a storm. And so sometimes we build unity in the good moments, sometimes we build unity in the stormy moments. And the core people and relationships with them call us to unity. Over and over again, the essentials, the spirituality, this concept of unity, we're called to it by the core people. And you'll notice how welcoming and how forgiving and how understanding the core people can be towards each other and towards us as we journey together. So we are led by the core people. And we're led into a spirituality of community. Large communities are a place of hope, because we are a place of community. So the spirituality of community is central to the work of our mission. We do our mission in the context of building community. And it's true, the poor need the strong, but we have discovered that the strong also need the so-called poor, the so-called weak, that in fact, together we are better. That's the spirituality of L'Arche in a nutshell. Relationships with our core people are at the heart of our community. Our mission is to make known the gifts of our core people revealed through mutually transforming relationships. So we want to cook together. We want to clean together. We want to do outings together. We want to do things together. And when people put those who are at the so-called littlest at the center, everyone in fact benefits. When people live in communion with those who are differently challenged, the relationships become a source of healing and change. We all know that in our world today, we've put the rich and the famous and the powerful at the center, and the gap keeps growing. The so-called littlest put at the center unity. A community, Dietrich Bonhoeffer tells us, without people with disabilities is a disabled community. We need our people. We are transformed by our people. I love this quote by Jean. As I touched the pain and fragility of our core people, and as their trust in me grew, new springs of tenderness welled up in me. That's the possibility, that we can become more gentle, more tender, more caring, more compassionate. He says, I loved them and was happy with them. They awakened a part of my being that had been underdeveloped, dormant. Through them, a new world began to open up for me, not the world of efficiency, competition, success, and power, but the world of the heart, of vulnerability and communion. They were leading me on a path toward healing and wholeness. That's what's possible when we enter into a spirituality of community with our people. And none of this is easy. Difference, like age, religion, culture, lifestyle, they're rewarding, but they're also difficult. Change is never easy and hard to maintain. Hell is other people, and so is heaven. Thomas Clark, a Jesuit, said, community wounds even as it blesses. Building community and being friends with our core people transforms and awakens the heart. That's the promise of the spirituality of community. Scott Peck says, if it is so channeled, life in community may touch upon something perhaps even deeper than joy. What repeatedly draws me into community is something more. When I am with a group of human beings committed to hanging in there through both the agony and the joy of community, I have a dim sense that I am participating in a phenomenon for which there is only one word. I almost hesitate to use it. The word is glory. The spirituality of community can lead to this participation, this phenomenon of glory and joy. Spirituality of community is what we are about. Community is the vehicle that allows us to live out our mission. Next, we will look at the spirituality of the body. We want to spend some time now looking at another aspect of the spirituality of L'Arche, and that's the spirituality of the body. There's no question that when you come to L'Arche, you're going to recognize that the body is a central aspect of our life together. And I want to share once again my screen with you, the spirituality of the body. Jean Vanier has written, who can believe the folly of the presence of God hidden in littleness? This is true, of course, of Jesus, right? He went to the cross. He was a little man. Isaiah refers to him as a little man, a poor man. Our people, not only are they little, but what we discover in L'Arche is our own littleness and our own giftedness. It's a both and experience. This is Mary. Mary lived with us for 40 some years. Mary, over the years, became littler and littler, and yet her beauty shined through. Our desire in L'Arche is to change the model that we live from a hierarchy, from a pyramid, to a body, to the body of Christ, where everyone feels a sense of, I participate, I'm included, I belong, I'm a part of this community together. Spirituality of the body includes helping with baths, a very obvious area, helping a person in the bathroom, helping a person to eat sometimes. Appropriate touch is so important in the spirituality of the body. It can be so misused, touch, and it is so often in our world. L'Arche is called to appropriate touch, to gentleness, to tenderness, to reverence and respect concerning touch. It's about being a presence. It's about being compassionate in front of pain. It's about listening to our stories and to their stories. And memories are often connected to the body. And It's about slowing down. One of the things assistants will often report is that the core members call them to slow down. Sometimes it's a gift, sometimes it's a frustration, but the call is there to slow down. These are some of the ways the spirituality of the body is lived out in L'Arche. It's an invitation to do the little things well for love of me. Okay? Whether it's offering help in the bathroom, whether it's simple as combing someone's hair, whether it's helping someone with their coat, whether it's putting your arm around someone and saying, I'm sorry you're feeling pain right now, or let's work on this forgiveness. The spirituality of the body is about acceptance of reality and our humanness. We're invited to touch our own poverty and our own giftedness. It's about self-acceptance, the spirituality of the body. So my daughter, Bethany, who was in a car accident a number of years ago, struggles with her short-term memory. We were in a restaurant together and we'd had a meal. And when we left and got in the car, I realized I'd forgotten her mittens at the table and it was very cold out. So I said, let's go back in and get your mittens. When we got back in there, we said, well, let's have a cup of hot chocolate together. And we sat down at the same booth where her mittens were. And I said, so you remember that we were just here? And she said, no, I have no memory of being here at all. And I said, well, that must be so hard for you. And she leaned across the table, took my hand in hers and said, Dad, you've got to learn to accept things as they come to you. She's my teacher about acceptance. And then tied to this idea of the body often is the spirituality of descent into littleness. Or as Jesus so eloquently put it, unless you change and become like a little child, you can't even get in the door to heaven. Okay? We are called to a descent to littleness. And this is partly a call to deepen in our understanding of and to live the Beatitudes and their upside down values. The Sermon on the Mount are instructions for life. The Sermon on the Mount are instructions for how to live L'Arche. And in fact, oftentimes they are a call to discover who we are. So Jesus said, come to me, for I am meek and humble of heart. L'Arche offers an opportunity to grow in humility and to become more like Jesus. The Beatitudes could be seen as I am statements. I am meek and humble. I am poor in spirit. I am a peacemaker. Jesus knew the Beatitudes because he'd lived into them. He'd meditated on them. He'd grown into them. That's the call for each of us also, to grow into these upside down values. It's the call to humility, the descent into littleness, to be in touch with the truth of ourselves, with our gifts and our wounds. It's not to deny, it's not to live in a lie, it's to live the truth. Humility, truth, and integrity are linked on the journey of knowing our true self. And this is a call to welcome the little one, the rejected, the misunderstood, both within and without of ourselves. So sometimes it's to welcome ourselves in our littleness. Sometimes it's to welcome the other in their littleness. It's a call to forgiveness. Blessed are the poor in spirit. When Jesus met the woman at the well, he built a relationship with her by revealing his neediness. He said, woman, give me a drink. So he showed his humanness, he showed his littleness, he showed his neediness, and that began a relationship, a time of communication, a bond, if you will, and eventually her realization that he was the Christ. Through his neediness, she realized he was the Christ. The descent into littleness is basically a fight against our tendencies to want power and control. In community, we can touch our anger, our vulnerability, our desire for power and control. If you want a quick win, change yourself. Or as Gandhi said, the things you want to change in the world, change them in yourself. So those are two aspects, the descent into littleness and the spirituality of the body, which are both central to our living the life and the spirituality of L'Arche. We want to look at just a couple more aspects of the spirituality of L'Arche today. The spirituality of L'Arche can be looked at as a spirituality of recognition and acceptance. Spirituality of recognition and acceptance, okay? Recognition and acceptance are two of the key words to any journey in life. It is often through weakness, recognized and accepted, that the liberating love of God is revealed. This is one of those aspects of L'Arche. I think of Sister Sue Mosteller when she said, L'Arche is a place, I love it and I hate it. I mean, who can't hate weakness? And yet, it's through this recognition and acceptance of weakness that we open ourselves to the love of God. Or as Paul puts it, God chose what is weak in this world to confound the strong. The members of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable. Okay, this is a truth and a paradox and a vision that the world doesn't share, but L'Arche constantly reveals to us. We know that the core members of our community are central to us building community together. And we also know that when not recognized, weakness is an obstacle and leads to broken relationships. Okay, it comes out in dysfunctional ways when we don't name it, when we don't recognize it, when we don't come to some acceptance of it. When we name something, when we name our anger, our inner violence, our depression, our insecurity, it loses its power and control. It begins to lose its power and control. We bring it into the light, if you will. So let's ask the Holy Spirit that we might be poor in spirit. Again, one of the Beatitudes. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and give me the wisdom to know the difference. The spirituality of L'Arche is also a spirituality of journey. Okay? The journey toward covenant. Covenant means promise. I have set my rainbow in the clouds as a sign of my covenant with the earth, as a sign of my promise. My presence will always be there. It's a journey into trust, humility, and littleness, this journey of L'Arche. For each of us, our first covenant is our relationship with God. And this journey is a call to growth. All of life is about growth. All of L'Arche is about growth. All relationships are about growth, whether it's the relationship I have with myself or the relationship I have with another. We're called to grow. And covenant relationships recognize the giftedness of each other. They are mutual. In fact, the way you know you're in a truly covenant relationship is that you are revealing to each other your giftedness and your beauty and your value. And the spirituality of L'Arche, again, is to receive the blessing of eating at the table together. Eating at the same table is a sign of mutuality. It's a sign of covenant relationships. It's the promise we make to each other that we are on this journey together. And then finally, there's this spirituality in L'Arche of both trust and being disturbed. You know, all truth is paradoxical. All truth in nature is both and. Both trust and being disturbed makes it truth. The spirituality of L'Arche is to welcome Jesus and to live with him hidden in the poor and the broken, Jean said. You could say the spirituality of L'Arche is to welcome love and to live with love hidden in the poor and the broken. So in community and in relationships, we can both be disturbed and awoken. It's a paradox. In L'Arche, we don't just feed our people, we eat with them. We don't just house our people, we live with them. We share life with them. We journey with them. We don't just care for our people, we receive back from them. And we don't just serve our people, we work, we pray, we celebrate, and we share life. We build community so that we can all grow in love. The L'Arche communities are communities of faith, rooted in prayer and trust in God. L'Arche is a place of growth, a place of love, a place of mutuality, a place of tenderness, a place of gentleness, a place where diversity is welcomed and where in the midst of that diversity, we find unity. You'll find that there is a small questionnaire that you're to fill out that you'll give back to us so that we know that you've been listening. Peace be with you.